We're actually just 1 minute after, so we're only going to, we do have one raised hand, and our list participant may not be able to access the Q&A, so we will take just that one and hopefully make it very brief. Ariro, you are able to speak.
Hello. So I have a question. Many people use LaTeX to make PDFs. Do you know how, or is there any package in LaTeX that could make accessible?
I wasn't able to hear that question very well. Caitlin, were you?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I was asking about using LaTeX.
Oh, LaTeX. Okay. If you are fancy enough to be using LaTeX, I'm going to have to get back to you. I have a graduate student on this very meeting, Katya Gazman, and she is a genius with that. We'll talk about accessibility on LaTeX. I actually have some vision issues with nystagmus. I have a very difficult time using LaTeX. It's just too small and my Zoom doesn't like it. So, so yes, we will look at that. And Katya is going to be my go-to gal on that. We have your name and we'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So with that, Kate, we do have one more question in the Q&A for you, but we'll keep you on as panelist to answer that afterwards as we move on to Maria's presentation. So Maria, we're going to be hearing about accessibility requirements for in-person conferences, so very on theme for what we've been discussing so far. So whenever you are ready, please feel free to begin.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Elena Monzani. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman. I'm wearing clear glasses and a black sweater. My hair is mid-length of a weird orange, red, pink color. So I'm going to talk about in-person conferences now. Caitlin and Kate and I did not coordinate our presentations, but it's going to be vaguely complementary to what they said so far. I'm going to say a few words about myself. I have another picture of me because we're seeing each other on the screen and some of us cannot see me. And I have a photograph of myself that I took at NASA Cape Canaveral in 2008. Here I'm standing next to an EVA suit. That's an extravehicular activity suit. It's white with all the plugs for the life support system and has a helmet on top. And the suit is standing on top of a pedestal, so the whole thing is about 7 feet tall. And you can see me in the picture, or if you can't, I'll tell you, I'm approximately 4 feet tall, so I look like half the EVA suit that I'm standing next to. So my job is I'm a lead scientist at the SLAC Linear Accelerator Center and Stanford University. I work in astrophysics and particle physics on the Fermi Gamma-ray Telescope and the LAC Zeppelin or LZ Dark Matter experiment. You probably heard a little accent. I was born in Italy and I went to school in Italy and France and moved to the United States in 2006. I have a diagnosis of skeletal dysplasia, so it comes with very short stature, about 4 feet tall. I have limited mobility and I've had 13 surgeries and counting so far. Here is another photo of me. Oops, this is stuck. Using a walker. This was in the hospital after my back surgery in 2012. I usually work autonomously, but sometimes I need either a cane or a walker, depending on how good I'm feeling at the conference. So this gives you the context of why I'm interested in physical accessibility for events. So I'm on slide number 3. We had a lot of remote conferences during the pandemic. Here is a photo of my collaboration meeting. It's a collage from screenshots taken over Zoom. This is a photo of me. There are about 100 people in this collage. And in the middle of it is the logo of the LAC Zeppelin or LZ experiment. So we didn't have in-person conferences for almost 2 years because of travel restrictions. And this was very detrimental to the mental health of people with physical disabilities because we were, cut off from services and rehabilitation facilities for several months. And also we couldn't interact with our colleagues in person. However, the lack of travel has made it a lot easier to attend different types of conferences, meetings, and workshops all over the world. So, for example, I took a training on continuous integration and continuous development at CERN, and I live in California. I would never have done that in person. I would not have traveled to Switzerland for a 2-day training, but I could take it from the comfort of my kitchen. I like to, so this presentation comes from a talk, is expanded on a talk that I gave at the American Physical Society. So this is what I usually tell my colleagues in physics who are not necessarily interested in the accessibility topic. And one of the questions is here on slide number 4, why should we care if we don't have a disability? And I found a stock photo of a woman pushing a stroller in silhouette and another woman pushing somebody in a wheelchair. So my point here is that every human has a disability in the first couple of years of their lives. They cannot walk, they cannot talk, they cannot eat, they cannot get dressed on their own. So everybody is disabled in a way at the beginning of their life. And most humans experience illness and disability towards the end of their lives. And as Kate said, many physicists are still actively doing science when they cannot run around as they could when they were younger. So this impacts all of us at the beginning or at the end of our lives. And 26% of adults, I think this is from 2018, 26% of adults in the US experience some types of disability, specifically about 14% are mobility impaired. So this is a very substantial piece of the population. So another way of looking at it is the usual chart of reality, equality, and equity. For those who've never seen it, this drawing shows 3 children who are trying to look at a baseball game, watching over a fence. And there are a number of crates that are given to the children to help them, look over the fence. And the three children are of very different heights. One of them is very small, one is medium, and one is taller. In reality, one person gets more than is needed, and everybody else gets, and the other people get less than needed. And which causes a huge disparity. The concept of equality is that everyone benefits from the same support. And this is considered to be equal treatment. But we can see here is that if each one of the children gets a crate to use to look over the fence, for one of them is not going to be enough. Equity means that everyone gets the support they need, which produces equity. So the shorter people get 2 crates, et cetera, et cetera. There is another version of this chart that adds one panel, and the panel is justice. They just remove the fence and everybody can see the game without support or accommodations because the cause of the inequity was addressed. So the systemic barrier was removed. And the point here is that accessible spaces make the experience more enjoyable for everyone. Here is a big example, and I'm gonna talk about airports. Accessible spaces are good for everyone. I have a photo here of a family with a small child in an airport. They're standing in front of a movable walkway. The woman is wearing a yellow shirt and a headscarf, and the man is wearing a red shirt and jeans. Here's the thing, they have a baby and the baby is in a stroller and they're comfortably pushing the stroller throughout the airport. And they also have a suitcase and the suitcase is on wheel. And also they can push that comfortably during the airport. All airports in the United States are ADA compliant. Aircrafts are not because of space, but the airports are, which makes travel a lot easier for everyone. You can put your children in a stroller and you can put your suitcase on wheels. Another example here, I have a photograph of an automated door opening button. This was taken at my lab a couple months ago. This button is maybe approximately 2.5 feet long. It goes all the way to the ground. It can be activated to open a door, either with your feet or knees or elbows or any parts of your body. This was important because in the early pandemic, we thought that COVID was spreading through touching the same surfaces, and having an automatic door opening button eliminates high touch surfaces when you're entering or exiting a public building, and you don't have to touch it at all if you touch it like an elbow with clothes on top. So that's the first point, that accessible spaces make the experience better for everyone. A bit of context for our friends in the astronomy community: the particle physics community is going through its decadal community planning exercise. I have a photo here with the logo of an in-person conference that we're planning for next year, which is a community summer study. And it's, you know, some photos from the university campus and Mount Rainier in the back, which is really great. So the goal here is to collect input from all physicists about the particle physics experiments we want to build in the next decade, in the 2030s. And we want this process to be as inclusive as possible, as we're discussing the future of the field. So it's not obvious that the people who will be particle physicists in the 2030s are the same that are around now. So we call this a community study, and it will have an in-person workshop next summer in Seattle. And this is being coordinated by the Division of Particle and Fields of the American Physical Society, and they appointed an ethics advisory committee to discuss matters of fairness and inclusivity in the process. And I'm a member of that committee. And the committee has identified accessibility for both virtual and in-person meetings as a priority. I'm sorry, I accidentally went out of full screen. I apologize. I wanted to watch the time. Okay, so in preparation for that, we did a survey. The community frontier of this community planning team has done a survey about accessibility, and they asked people, is there an accessibility issue that you think will create barriers for participation in this process? And 2/3 of the people were worried about the colleagues who were deaf or hard of hearing. 2/3 of the people were worried about colleagues who were visually impaired or blind. And more than half the people were worried about people who were colleagues who were physically impaired, and a lot of people were worried about financial support and mental health of their colleagues. So this was very interesting. There is a link here to the results and recommendations that I will share later. Should I share a link to the slides while I'm speaking? I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. I will post it in the chat. Let me go back here. Okay, we had one of the questions in the survey asked, doesn't the ADA solve all accessibility issues? And here was one survey response that was said, every event ends up being different, which is a challenge. Even domestic events, which nominally should conform to ADA requirements, sometimes don't have or are not willing to acquire funds to support accommodation, requiring bailouts from the employing institution, larger organization of funding agencies, or the supervisor's private research funds. International events are more consistent in being unwilling to provide funding for accommodations. So although the ADA is a great achievement for the United States, in our community, it does not always come to bear in the way that one would hope. Moreover, there are many types of physical disabilities beyond those that involve the use of a wheelchair, and we must take into account the needs of those. For example, people who are limited in their walking speed of distance, people for whom standing for long periods of time is not possible, people who have chronic pain and require more comfortable seating, and Caitlin mentioned that in her presentation, people who are very short or very tall, and people who have upper extremity disabilities, making it too difficult to lift or carry objects. This was mentioned in Caitlin's presentation, is a photograph of people standing around at the reception hour for a conference. And this photo was found on the website of a company that provides conference services. And I was thinking, this is not great advertising. The photo shows high tables, the ones that are about 2.5 feet, and people standing around the tables and talking. It's mostly men. There are 3 women in the crowd. So this is probably a tech or engineering conference. Again, not great advertisement for the organizers. People are standing around those tables, drinking a beer, etc. The tables are very close together, and so people are speaking back to back to each other, and somebody's wearing a backpack. Obviously, if you're trying to navigate this space in a wheelchair, or if you're just very short like me, this is going to be dangerous. You're going to be hitting the head with somebody's backpack, and also you're not going to be able to use the table at all. And you're not going to be able to make eye contact with the other attendees when talking. And so this model of stand around and mingle is really bad for wheelchair user and limited mobility folks. I usually at this event end up alone in a corner in the lawn chair in the room. It's important that people with disability not only are able to attend the talks, but also are able to attend, to participate in the social events. So then there is transportation at the event. You can hire a bus and carry people around. But for example, you need to schedule rides at a certain point. You were talking about the AAS meetings. Those are in big conference centers with 5 minutes talk and people run around between sessions. You cannot drive a bus in the middle of the conference session. And if somebody drives me around, there is a lot of scheduling that I need to do that somebody who can walk fast doesn't have to take care of it. One other thing that I like to talk about is lines. If I can't reach something, somebody hands it to me, or if I skip a line during, the lunch hour, people are usually gracious. Sometimes they make fun of me, but not everybody is comfortable asking. I'm comfortably mid-career, so I don't care what people think, but if somebody is younger in their career, they will not ask to skip in line. And the point of accessibility is that it's a human right, not a favor. So we came up with a set of recommendations for the event next year, and I'm gonna go over some of the highlights there. And sorry, the next 2 slides are a little bit crowded, so we'll post a link to the slides, or maybe I just did. So people can go over them at their leisure. So there are issues about meeting rooms. As Caitlin mentioned, the layout of the room. Are there stairs? Are there, for example, bags and coats that are in the aisle so people cannot navigate the aisle of the building with their wheelchair? Is there, people cannot sit for a long time in an uncomfortable chair. So for example, we want at least a set of tables so that people can put their stuff down, use the desk for back support. And then one of the things is that usually the accessible part of a large auditorium is in the back, not in the front. And so if at the end of the talk, the speaker, people walk up to the speaker and ask them question, the disabled cannot go there. So we want to have a chat area just outside the meeting room, and it will have chairs so everybody's on the same level and they can talk to the speaker and ask additional questions after their talks. During the events, we want to have conference events at a single building. We want to have transportation. The second best is to have a bus that can transport people between events. The next best is to have an app where you can call the bus. If it's not always there, the bus needs to be a kneeling bus. And we need to keep in mind that accessible paths sometimes take much longer than non-accessible paths. So make sure that people have enough time to go from event A to event B if they have to take the accessible path. And then you want to go to the location multiple times before the event because, ADA button breaks, there is construction, there are obstructions, et cetera, and then you want to have maps and signage to guide people throughout the accessible paths. There will be lines for meals and hotels. There will be lines at check-in, coffee and meals. It's good to have lots of stations rather than a small number of long lines. This is the type of thing that, is absolutely important for those who cannot stand for a long time, but also makes the conference a lot better because you don't want to have an hour lunch break and the people are just standing in line for the whole hour and not talking to their colleagues. Not everybody is comfortable using a handicap line. So that's also a thing to keep in mind. It'd be great if food was in an in-house food court, so people don't have to walk miles to find a restaurant. If there is both buffet-style food, we will want multiple stations or even served at the tables. And there should be some seating at all breaks and social events for those who cannot stand. And then you want to have enough space so that people in wheelchairs or with mobility restrictions can move around to their table, to the restroom, and places to get food. And also the reception, where you have to carry your things and talk to your colleagues. Some people have are missing limbs, upper limbs, and so we need to make sure that they have a place to put their stuff down, so that if they're not able to carry objects easily. And then there are hotels. Are the hotels close enough? Is there transportation from hotels? And 1 year I stayed at the conference, which was hosted at the university, and we were housed in the dorms, and they could not reach the bed because dorm beds are really high. So make sure that everything is advertised at the time of registration, and have hotel rooms within short walking distance, because sometimes the buses are not kneeling or are a pain to get in and out. So for our conference next year, we're putting all those recommendations on the webpage, and we're aiming for a fully accessible in-person event next year. So we want standard accommodations for everybody, and the form that people can fill out to request for extra accommodation. We don't want everything to be in the form, because it's not the job of the attendee, disabled attendee, to teach everybody how to do accessibility. And so then if this works, we will propose to extend it to all the APS and DPF sponsored events in the future. I want to conclude by saying accessibility is not rocket science, but also we're getting the rocket science in hand, as you heard earlier. This photo is the advertisement of the new campaign for astronauts with a physical disability at the European Space Agency. It shows a person with a prosthetic limb, a person with limb length discrepancy, and a person with very short stature. So you heard probably about the Inspiration for mission, which was 2 months ago, and it had a cancer survivor with an artificial joint. And these people went on orbit. And then, like I said, ESA is recruiting the first ever astronaut class to include people with disabilities. So I like to say, if we can bring disabled folks to space, we can certainly organize fully accessible scientific events. And like I said, this is not just a matter of justice and equity, but it's a favor to our future selves who will want to go to conferences in their 70s. And my acknowledgements are for the DPF Ethics Advisory Committee and some of the people who are organizing the Seattle conference next year. I hope we have a few minutes for questions.
We do. First and foremost, I just wanted to let you know that we are unfortunately not able to access your slides. If you could please adjust the sharing settings so that anyone on the internet can view them, that would be great. Then we can share via that link.
Thank you so much for telling me.
Yes, of course. Yes, so down there where it says get link,
Yeah.
you need to change to anyone with the link who can view. So click on the change to anyone with the link.
It doesn't help if you tell me what to do because of sensory processing. So sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well,
No
you did
worries.
it.
No worries.
It will not work.
And then I'll find the chat. Sorry, yeah, I did see a message a few minutes ago. Sorry, I was talking. Is this working now? And I apologize for that.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Now I will share those again.
Oh, there we go. Now I see people signing on the...
Yes. People can now view.
Okay, questions, comments?
Let me just check the Q&A. We did have a raised hand for a moment, but it disappeared. I'm not sure if that person would still like to share their question, or if it was possibly answered. It might have been about the slides. Okay, I do not see them pulling you back up. So, in regards to in-person conferences, is there anything that you see typically as an accommodation, or what is meant to be helpful as an accommodation that might not actually be helpful. That's a theme of something that's come up with some of our other speakers of non-disabled people trying to make accommodations that turn out to not actually be helpful or actively unhelpful.
Yeah, so one example was when I was talking about the bus. I attended a very large conference which was spread out over the University of Minnesota campus, which is across there is a big river in between, right? And the sessions were the morning and the plenary sessions on the west side of campus, and then the afternoon was back and forth. And they made the bus available for people with disabilities. And we didn't have an option to call the bus ourselves. We needed to talk to somebody in the hallway, and the person would call the bus driver. So if I knew at the beginning of the conference exactly which session I wanted to see and when, maybe I could have worked it out, but it created such a complication that what I did was, in the afternoon, I wouldn't go to the sessions, hang out at the coffee shop. People knew where I was and, have my parallel alternate conference. Also, the bus was not a kneeling bus and did not have a platform, and the steps were like this high, so that was not very helpful.
That sounds very bad. I'm so sorry. That's such an unfortunate experience. I'm so sorry about that. Having a conference with sessions entirely across a campus sounds inconvenient whether you're disabled or not.
This is very common with all big conferences, right? If you have 300-400 people, they're small enough that they're easy to navigate. If you want to have an inclusive process in terms of numbers, 3,000-4,000 people, then it becomes very complicated for disabled attendees. As I'm sure you know, as I'm sure the AAS folks are familiar with.
That is definitely a very large challenge in ensuring accessibility while also ensuring safety for the number of people that you're trying to accommodate for.